The Assembly will hear a statement by His Excellency Khurelsukh Ukhnaa, Prime Minister of Mongolia. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I have great pleasure in welcoming the Prime Minister of Mongolia. I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Madam President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, honorable ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates. At the outset, I wish to express my heartfelt congratulations to Ms. Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garces upon her election as the President of the 73rd session of the General Assembly. I pledge my delegation's full support and cooperation in the discharge of your onerous responsibilities. President, today we are living in a flat, globalized and interrelated world. Our life is digitalized to a great extent, and our way of life is greatly shaped by technological progress. In spite of these developments, we are encountering a plethora of global flashpoints, including conflicts, poverty, hunger, and inequality. Hence, I am glad to represent my government at this general debate, which will deliberate issues of making the United Nations more relevant to all people and making the world more peaceful, equitable, and sustainable. In the past 73 years, the United Nations reached out to and assisted every member state through its diligent activities for peace, justice, and global understanding. Thus, under the Sustainable Development Agenda, it is timely for the United Nations, and in line with its founding principles, to endeavour to reach every individual in the member states. Mongolia appreciates the leadership of the Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, reinforcing the joint efforts of member states to leave no one behind through his reform initiatives. We are supporting his reform initiatives for the peace and security architecture, which is aimed at ensuring stronger prevention and mediation activities and at making peacekeeping operations more cost-effective, as well as supporting his efforts to reposition the UN development system, initiatives which aspire to shape the United Nations into a more effective, well-coordinated, transparent and accountable organization. President, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute report, world military expenditure is estimated to have reached $1.7 trillion in 2017. This amount is not only an increase from the previous year, but also the highest level of such expenditure since the end of the Cold War. The armaments race shows no sign of abating, and situations in some regions are unstable due to worsening conflicts. Use of technological advancements in armed conflicts is making the situation more dangerous than ever. Mongolia has always stood for the principled position that any conflicts should be resolved peacefully and through dialogue. Based on our peaceful philosophy, stemming from the national perspective and religious beliefs, we have always supported peace and security initiatives raised at the United Nations General Assembly and other fora. And we have always striven to be a responsible member of this organization. Just to cite a few of Mongolia's initiatives that prove its contributions to peace and security at the global and regional echelons, I would highlight the General Assembly resolutions on Disarmament Week, observed on the 24th to the 30th of October every year since 1978, and the Declaration on the Right of Peoples to Peace, adopted in 1984, and would also point to the Declaration of Mongolia as a nuclear weapon-free territory in 1992, a status that we continue to guarantee and uphold. There is a Mongolian saying that it is better to give a needle in time of need rather than gifting a camel when wealthy, or, as you say in English, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Mongolians always try to assist other nations and people when they are in need or seeking peace and stability. There was an occasion when we brought hundreds of orphans from the DPRK to Mongolia in the immediate aftermath of the Korean War and raised them. During the last decades, we have been stretching out our hands within our capacity to a number of countries that have faced natural disasters and terrorist acts, rendering development assistance to some regional countries and sharing our modest experience of democratic transition. This year, we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of United Nations peacekeeping, which has contributed immensely to world peace and security. Mongolia first joined the United Nations peacekeeping family in 2002 with the deployment of unarmed military observers and started deploying troops in 2006. Nowadays, we are proud of our troops, who are praised by the international community for their robust, calm and appropriate approach to peacekeeping. As one of the top 30 troop-contributing countries, as well as one of the leaders in terms of deployment per capita, Mongolia envisages increasing its participation in UN peacekeeping operations and fully supports the Secretary-General's Action for Peacekeeping initiative. President, addressing security issues in Northeast Asia is indeed one of our foreign policy priorities, as this has direct impacts on Mongolia's security and development. Mongolia closely follows and welcomed the recent positive developments on the Korean Peninsula, including the inter-Korean and other bilateral summits that are giving an important impetus towards confidence building and ensuring peace and security in Northeast Asia. However, we are not merely observing the process, but are trying to make our own contributions to it. Since the 1980s, we have been consistently pursuing the policy of launching a dialogue mechanism in Northeast Asia. These efforts yielded the Ulaanbaatar Dialogue on Northeast Asia, an international conference conducted since 2014 on an annual basis. This dialogue forum is now evolving into an open and inclusive mechanism, gathering together both government officials and academics from all countries in the sub-region. Discussion topics cover a broad range of issues, including security, energy, infrastructure, green development, opportunities for humanitarian cooperation, and others. Asia is one of the most disaster-prone regions in the world. We actively support regional cooperation for enhancing disaster resilience, reducing disaster risk, and increasing the effectiveness of disaster prevention activities. Within this framework, we put forward an initiative to establish the Northeast Asia Disaster Risk Reduction Platform in Mongolia. The proposal was discussed at the Ulaanbaatar Dialogue on Northeast Asia conferences and at the Second Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, which was successfully organized and hosted in Ulaanbaatar last July. And the proposal has received warm support from regional countries for implementation. Mongolians believe that neighbors share the same disposition and interests. As Mongolia is determined to develop strategic partnerships with its two big neighbours, it closely follows their initiatives at the regional level and strives to engage with them in every possible way. Recently, we proposed initiatives on travel facilitation for travellers from countries along the Belt and Road Corridor, and also put forward the Peace, Prosperity, Progress and Promise Award for junior diplomats and scholars from Belt and Road countries. President, there is no doubt that the numerous armed conflicts, rivalries, insurgencies and terrorist attacks that trouble us today are caused by the clash of civilizations and religions. Mongolia is one of the few nations that has had no religious and ethnic wars in its history. The Great Mongolian Empire, established 812 years ago, was governed by written and codified law, and it was a genuine home of religious freedom. where Christians, Muslims, Confucians, and Buddhists were treated equally and lived together without any ideological struggles. In brief, the legacy of religious tolerance and respect in the Mongolian Empire, which covered an immense swathe of territory, is very instructive for today's world. More recently, in the 20th century, during the era of the Cold War, we were conducting meaningful activities for combining and bringing together the voices of international Buddhists in support of world peace, and we did so through the Asian Buddhist Conference for Peace, the ABCP, established in 1969, and which achieved tangible results in the fight against ideological division. Nowadays, we deem there is a pressing demand for effective dialogue mechanisms such as the ABCP, which has consultative status at the United Nations ECOSOC. Thus, we are determined to revitalize its activities and to do so at regional and international levels and in regional international fora. In this regard, as a regional hub connecting North, East and Central Asian countries, we are sharing with you our initiative, and I share it with you from this honourable podium of the United Nations, to host the Conference on Religious Freedom in March 2019 in Mongolia. We are confident that our initiative will make constructive contributions in the further development of the culture of peace, religious tolerance and religious freedom worldwide. President Mongolia was one of the early adopters of the National Sustainable Development Goals, endorsing its Sustainable Development Vision 2030 in February 2016. As per this vision, Mongolia aspires by 2030 to consolidate its democratic governance, preserve ecological balance, eradicate poverty in all its forms, and rank amongst upper-middle-income countries. My government has been taking important steps to ensure coherence between the Sustainable Development Goals and the national development policy documents that have been previously implemented, and steps to translate them into short and medium-term plans and programs. In order to provide financing for development, the investment program has been adopted in line with the government action plan. Moreover, the SDG indicators developed on the basis of multi-stakeholder consultations will be adopted shortly. Mongolia witnessed economic resurgence with accelerated foreign trade turnover, increased investment and a budget surplus during the last 2 years. However, Mongolian economic growth, which is highly dependent on mining and vulnerable to commodity prices, tends to be volatile and risky, hampering predictability for the allocation of financial resources for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in years of commodity price decline. Moreover, another challenge faced by my government is to ensure that every citizen benefits from economic growth. For instance, following recent economic growth, unemployment decreased modestly, but not poverty. Thus, we are inserting measures aimed at shrinking income disparities and reducing poverty into all relevant government programs and sectoral plans. We are compiling a complete database of low-income households and supporting public-private partnerships. In order to resolve the problems comprehensively, the National Programme on Reducing Poverty and Unemployment will be launched shortly. President, this year we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, a milestone document in the history of human rights. Pursuant to the ideology of the Declaration, Mongolia has made remarkable achievements in the field of the promotion and protection of human rights. In recent years, particular importance has been attached to issues such as enhancing gender equality, protecting the rights of children, the elderly and persons with disabilities, fighting against human trafficking and drugs, and improving freedom of speech and expression. In 2016 to 2018, Mongolia is serving as a member of the Human Rights Council for the very first time, and it has been an honor for us to contribute to global endeavours to protect and promote human rights. Everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in the Universal Declaration on Human Rights can be fully realized. Following the 2016 New York Declaration on Refugees and Migrants, member states constructively negotiated the issue of migration over the last 2 years. We expect that the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration to be adopted in December in Marrakesh on the historic day marking the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights will be a valuable document for the protection of the rights of all migrants. Over the last 2 decades, the world has witnessed the highest level of population displacement, and this phenomenon did not spare my own country, which has a small population and is located in the highlands of Northeast Asia. President, we're experiencing a high volume of internal and external migration due to a number of reasons, including unemployment and poverty. Owing to a large movement of citizens from the countryside to cities that has occurred since the 1990s, as of 2017, 45% of our total population in Mongolia lives in the capital city of Ulaanbaatar, with net annual growth of 22.3%. This results in social ramifications, including higher rates of poverty and unemployment, poorer access to healthcare services, and higher air pollution in the capital city compared to other places in the country. Citizens of Mongolia are highly educated, and the fact that the second biggest slice of the state budget in 2018 was allocated to the education sector demonstrates the government's firm commitment to prioritising human resource development. However, school availability and quality of education do not always keep pace with demographic growth, rates of urbanisation and modern education standards. While the pupil-to-classroom ratio in schools and kindergartens has decreased together with population density in rural areas, the reverse is true in urban centres. The government of Mongolia is planning and implementing policies and programs that aim by 2030 to address effectively the challenges faced by the capital city, including the shortage of kindergartens, the fact that many schools in the suburbs have to function in 3 shifts, the overload of family hospitals, adverse impacts of air pollution on people's health, as well as the issue of unemployed people in Ulaanbaatar, who account for 1/3 of the national unemployment rate. Furthermore, about 5% of our total working-age population is working abroad, and this number tends to grow. Thus, we need to enact comprehensive measures to resolve the issues of their healthcare, social insurance, dual citizenship, and improve the related legal environment. President, in our time, climate change is another daunting challenge for humanity that goes hand in hand with peace, security, and development issues. The Paris Agreement has been ratified by 179 countries. However, the implementation rate is falling behind expectations, and the fulfilment of shared responsibilities by member states remains insufficient. Therefore, we welcome and support the Secretary-General's timely initiative to convene the Climate Summit in September 2019 for reviewing the Paris Agreement commitments. Global warming and climate change impact all nations, though its efforts are felt more intensely in the economic and social development of least developed countries. The international think tank, the first ever intergovernmental organisation representing the 32 landlocked developing countries in particular, will conduct policy research work and implement feasible projects to address common challenges and to protect the interests and positions of those countries, landlocked developing countries that is, with the aim of augmenting their ability to benefit from international trade. I am confident that you will continue your cooperation and support for the activities of this think tank as you have done in the past. In Mongolia, where extreme weather conditions prevail and the economy mostly relies on mining and agriculture, the scope, frequency and negative impact of disasters such as earthquakes, desertification, soil erosion and forest fires has increased in recent years. Taking this opportunity, I wish to inform you that on the occasion of UN Climate Week, my delegation is launching a documentary entitled Blue Gold. We are sharing this documentary with you not only to demonstrate the devastating impact of climate change in Mongolia, but also to raise alarm about similar consequences and circumstances and to appeal for timely safeguarding steps to be taken. In conclusion, from this honourable podium of the United Nations, I would like to call for unity from all nations in a spirit of mutual trust, for consciousness of our responsibilities for the sake of not only the current but also future generations, as well as to call on us all to strive for peaceful, equitable and sustainable societies. Thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of Mongolia for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I now give the floor to His Excellency Simon Converney, Deputy Prime Minister of Ireland.